everybody's still here. All right, now, the minutes of February 3rd and 10th.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I second it.
February 3rd and 10th.
Any discussion? All in favor? And department reports as submitted.
Make a motion to approve the department reports as submitted.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Public hearing. Proposed changes to council rules of order. I believe this is a change our 5-minute rule to 3 minutes, is that correct?
That is one of the,
And is there other ones?
there is the other addition of a new regular line item for the agenda, which was council discussion topics not on the agenda.
Okay.
There was a first reading at the last meeting, and we've had the red line version of the language and the proposed changes out on the website and available here. And this would be the first opportunity we have to formalize the changes.
Does anyone have any questions on those proposals?
Victoria Clary, 80 Elm Street.
Step over here so we can-
I just have a question about, just for clarification, how the minutes are counted. If someone had a question for the council, their time starts when they start speaking. If the council answers, does the time continue while the council answers the question? So if 5 minutes were used up while the council answered the question, is there no longer time for a follow-up?
Traditionally, in the way that it was put to us when we sat down with Don Garish in our training a couple of months ago, it's more for uninterrupted community input, so it wouldn't be kind of a back and forth where people would lose time on that scenario, and more to the extent that they wouldn't necessarily either jump in, take it more as a listening session instead of a back and forth.
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Zach, I have a question on one of the items here on 5.1, I think it's 5.16. The changes that we were talking about changing agenda items, that would be just for discussion only, correct?
It would be discussion only, correct?
Nothing that we would vote on.
It most likely would not be. At any point in time within Robert's rules, the council can suspend the rules to add last-minute agenda items, but it's not a regular or desirable practice. This would be more so, and again, something that I added working at the county, to be able to allow the council to bring up ideas and to begin talking about what they may want to see on the next month's agenda, so that it can be more of an open discussion as to what we have on the agenda or on the short-term work plan, as opposed to bringing up something to surprise people with, to throw something on there that would be an immediate change.
So the intent is for discussion only. Thank you.
So it does not go against the charter.
No. What it does do is add an opportunity for council members to have a discussion, because you all as a group don't have the ability to really speak and kind of hash things out as an open dialogue. We can in workshops as well, but this is more of a regular opportunity. Again, when I put it on the county agendas, when I was running those, it was more of an opportunity for people to discuss kind of what they want to see upcoming to be added to the agenda, so that it's more of a group decision.
Okay, and so we don't have to suspend Robert's Rules of Order every single meeting if an idea comes up.
You can discuss them, but you'd have to suspend it to add it to the agenda to take a vote on making the final decision. But it gives you the opportunity to discuss whether or not you want to pursue something like that.
Proposed changes to the snow emergency policy.
This was the other one we pulled in. First reading was at the mid-February meeting. And this is allowing us to operate a little bit more like the towns around us. We had the first reading. The traditional policy that had been in place for a while is that if we do close the office for a snow emergency or inclement weather, staff would be forced to utilize their vacation time on days that the manager closes the office. It's not a popular practice, so we've redrafted it. Councilor Kaye requested us to put this forward as a formalized update. And this is the final language, second reading, so today would be, again, the first time we can pass it. And this would just make that change within our personnel policy.
Does anyone have any questions on that proposal? Very good. This meeting, you still have 5 minutes. So, I guess we have comments from the public at this point. Oh, good. Nobody has anything to say? Wonderful.
Well, I'll pipe in. Sean Clary, 88 Elm Street, and this will be quick. I will not use anything like 5 minutes. I didn't make it last month for the discussion of the changes to 3 minutes, and my immediate reaction was that the problem wasn't the fact that the time limit was too long, so much as lack of enforcement. That's pretty much my 2 cents. If keep people off, it seems to me that would be that would take care of the problem.
I agree. But at a workshop, the guy giving the workshop said that 5 minutes is a long, long time for somebody to speak, And 3 minutes is usually the norm for these public comments. And while I'm chair, they will be enforced.
Well, I think that's mostly a good thing. That's all. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, would you please?
I just want to thank Tasha for providing me the information I requested.
Excuse me, you talked to me, not to her.
I wanted to thank her, that's why I'm talking.
Well, you can thank her at another time if you wouldn't mind. When you're talking here, please talk to the chair, whoever it is, and
Sure.
go ahead.
All right. To the chair, would you please present my thank you to Tasha for her information on the legal expenses regarding the affair past spring and summer regarding Zach Mayer and the council decision to rescind their decision in June, and what extra legal expenses it cost. And actually, the question I have was how much above that $6,993.88 was above budget for legal expenses for the town.
Our legal budget for the town for the year was $7,000.
And okay, so we're over budget on the for this fiscal year on the legal.
Let me pull up appropriations, but yes, because that would, I'm assuming, was pulled for specifically that one subset of bills, but we obviously have ongoing. they are actually rolled into a couple of departments currently. So I would have to actually request a more detailed report. They're rolled into contracted services within boards and council line as well as the code enforcement line for our split legal budget. So I don't have that information offhand, but I can request that.
If you could, please. Thank you.
Sandra Ballard, 24 Clifton Street. When you have special meetings, how do you notify us?
Special council meetings?
Yeah.
We'll do the same, post the agenda at the window. We'll post it on the digital marquee out front, as well as the Facebook page, and we put it on the standing table of agendas and minutes on the council website.
There's no way you can put it in the newspaper?
Newspaper's ridiculously expensive.
Okay. Thank you.
And for the emergency meetings, yes. We don't do it for all of them, but the emergency meetings we post at Future Foods and the post office.
Anyone else? 7.1, update on 22 Pleasant.
We have not had any showings.
So it's,
We are expecting to schedule another meeting with the realtor coming up here in the spring before buying season.
no, when was that meeting going to be?
Yet to be scheduled.
Yet to be seen. Okay. 7.2, council discussion topics.
I have one. I get a lot of calls from many people about the people that put garbage outside their front door. There's one on North Street, there's one on Pleasant Street, there's one at a couple others. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what enforcement we can do as a town. There are some people that have put 10, 12, 15 bags of garbage out front of their house. I can't believe it, but they do. Go ahead.
It is something I know that's kind of come up in cycles with a few properties. Code enforcement does follow up, send letters, talk to the landlords, got me cleaned up a couple of times, but it cycles. But we do write letters, speak to the landlords if there were rentals or not, and have made some progress. We will keep at it.
Anything else? Code enforcement investigation. I had made a couple of calls to Mr. Overton in Augusta, but didn't receive much of any information. But in the last couple of days, I received a letter that was sent to Fred from a state inspector. And I don't remember exactly who it was, but he sent Fred a letter that he had gone over all of the information at 1 Riverside Drive and said that he found no problems with it. So that was going to be one that we're going to cross off the list now. If anyone has anything that they want to add, they should get their information in, all of it down in writing and verified, and then, I don't know what exactly what your avenue would be to challenge that, but what I can see right now with that particular complaint, that hadn't been followed all of the rules according to the state. Yes, Paul?
Paul is not that he's in the Stanford Road. Do you know if he was given complete information or just the tidbit that was included in the email that wasn't complete information?
From the letter, he read, he was here at the office and went over all of his records. And saw no problem with it. Now, I don't know what we're gonna do with the rest of it. Probably, it's not something that, you want to hear, but I think we may have to wait until we get a code enforcement officer. No one is interested in, looking over our problems with the, complaints. Yes?
That one, while it was being very politically generated, the code officer has now chosen to move on. As a resident, I'm concerned about anybody new that's hired walking into potential disaster, and I would like to see it continued in order to make sure that we know what's going on in that office and what the poor new person walking into, maybe walking into, and maybe leaving with some of it in the bud, so the next code officer doesn't have the wrath of hell fall on their head.
You got a comment?
We are looking to bring someone new on. We've had some applications. We're really just starting that process. We've started talking to the town of Minot to be able to have coverage until we have a code officer hired on here full-time as well. And I think it's gonna continue even with a new person coming on. I think the way that we have been in the beginning, there's still always questions and always concerns that could be raised from things that happened. I mean, multiple iterations of enforcers ago, and that was something that even current staff was working through as well. It's gonna be an ongoing process. The mill fire itself was kind of one of the first situations that really highlighted historical retention, record-keeping situation, and digitization of our records so that we can access them when something like that does happen. So it is a process coming on the shoulders of the next person stepping into that seat, as well as the rest of us here on staff as well, to do what we can to correct as we move forward if we find things like that. But again, it's, I think as in many towns, it happens in a lot of different ways, and some of these go back, the mill property, as an example, went back for some decades.
And there's no way
We can,
the new person has inspected that. I'm trying to say the new person's safe and good.
I think they would be the most qualified and capable and people with the most amount of time on their hands to do that. But I think it's picking up and being able to move forward with our new applications, and then correcting it as we go, as we do with a lot of the other departments as well. Just trying to move forward and fix what we can when we see it, when it comes up.
7.4. Oh. Yeah.
Rena Berry, 31 Becknam Street. So now, are we to assume that it's the town's policy that people are going to be able to build on non-conforming lots from now on? Then why is there nothing wrong with One Riverside Drive? That was a non-conforming lot, and the people that owned it also still have a huge parcel of land. I forget how many acres they have, but like 35 acres that attached to that. And it says right in our charter, they should have merged that land because it was the same people that owned it, rather than sell a non-conforming lot to build on or put the mobile home on or whatever. So why was that okay to do that? If nothing was wrong with that?
Very good question. I don't have an answer.
Well, I don't see why the state inspector, I mean, that's number one. That's only number one out of many, many things.
I think I think really the only way we're going to have this with somebody, I've tried to look into some of this, and it's, I don't have the time to go into looking at all of the ordinances and who owns what, and, you know, all of the details.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel that the best bet is to let whoever comes on board as CEO go over these problems and see what the resolution can be. And the people that we have contacted so far outside of our town, that there's no one interested. Overton said he would look at it, but he was overwhelmed, and about 4 weeks ago, he was gonna send me something, but I have seen nothing, and no report or anything else from him. So, in seeing that letter that I mentioned, it appeared that from that inspector's report that nothing was done wrong. So, that's why I made the comment. And if what you say is true, that both parcels were owned by the same person. I
Mhm.
know they were at one time, but whether that was the
They
case.
still are. Oh, well, not now, but I mean, they were, yeah.
That is true. It seems that it should, but I'm far from being qualified to make a ruling on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a poor electrician, not a code enforcement officer. So, I think the answer to your question is gonna be, it's gonna be waiting until we get a code enforcement officer and see if we can get him to go over the things. Hopefully, he has a lot more experience in it than I do, and will know where to look and.
I wonder if the state inspector knew that the same people owned that. That's, you know, number
I
one.
don't, all I know was that the letter said he had looked at everything, all of the Fred's records, and saw nothing wrong.
Mm.
So,
You could give it to her.
I'll ask her, yes, go ahead.
Milton Walker, 9 Riverside Drive. If he had read the ordinance that we have on our town, then he would have said, no, it was non-legal. But if he didn't get a copy of our ordinance in the records that he got from Fred, then probably the lot itself was made legal by state standards, but not necessarily by our own ordinance. So that's where the problem comes.
Any other questions on code enforcement? Okay. 7.4, annual report dedication. Nomination.
I would like to nominate Rain Tarantino. She was the lady that took care of our children at the, I forget what it's actually called. After school or before school.
I second that.
Are we doing that now?
Yes. Any more discussion? All in favor? Seven point five, Spirit of America nominations. Anybody have any suggestions?
I had only verbally heard of one recommendation, and that was for Jay Bryant and Justin Starler from the rec committee to be nominated. Seeing how that's the only one I've received, nobody else is going to make a motion, I'll make the motion that we accept those two for the Spirit of America nomination.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
We will reach out and find people to help us with the dedication. Right?
New business, 8.1, office closure.
So we would be, and are requesting to be able to close the clerk's office window for 1 hour tomorrow. We have the election, so staff will be down there. This will allow Lisa, who's covering the clerk's office, to take lunch. And the second one would be
The 17th, is that a holiday?
our 17th. We
It's
have
a
a
national holiday?
we have a training that Julie is going to, so this would be a 1 hour closure as well. Just a 1 hour closure to allow Lisa to take a lunch.
And you'll post it on
Oh, I make a motion to approve 1 hour closures on March 3rd and March 17th.
seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor? Pass. 8.2, interim council appointment.
You have the apps are in your digital folder, but we have received 2 applications for the interim council. So
We have Paula.
Paul
and-
Stotts and Rose Baker.
So we'll have each. Okay, we have 2 people interested, and we'll take them in alphabetical order. So I guess Rose Aikman would be the first, if she's here. Brett, the mic, please, and
Just tell a little something about myself,
Right.
or, okay. I was one of 9 children that grew up on a dairy farm in Minot. I attended Minot School and graduated from Mechanic Falls High School in 1963. I graduated from Auburn, Maine School of Commerce and have taken several courses at the University of Maine. I lived in Poland for 35 years, and I served on the Board of Selectmen in Poland, and I currently serve as president and clerk of the Pine Grove Cemetery. In 1996, I built and converted Wolf Cove Inn in Poland on Trip Lake, and I operated that for 10 years. In 1988, I was elected to the Maine legislature, and I served 8 years. And out of those 8 years, I was on the Utilities Committee, I was on the Labor Committee, and I was on the Appropriations Committee. In 2007, I sold my inn and moved to Hebron, and I built a home there and lived in Hebron 10 years before moving to Mechanic Falls in 2016. So I've been in the area all my life. I know what goes on basically in the communities, and so I have some extra time and would love to devote some of that time to working with the town council and looking out for the best interest of the community.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Paula.
Hello again. My name is Paula Stotts. I've been a resident since December of 1999. We own the Old Bray Farm up at the end of Standpipe, where we run a all-natural, free-range poultry and vegetable farm and a goat. We have a goat herd. I have 4 biological children. We have had we've had 17 unofficial fosters run through our homes in our 38 years of marriage. I have been a part of the Androscoggin Saginaw Hawk County Extension Office. I've been on their executive board. I've been an ombudsman for VP 10 when we were on active duty military. My husband did 22 years in the U.S. Navy, a lot of it up here, and during that time, as his wife, I was very active in supporting the communities we're in. I have been on the planning board for 15 years, and I have other activities that I partake in with helping neighbors and His Place Teen Center and churches and food banks and things. My biggest goal with getting on this board is to bring back unity in the community. What happened this last year has torn our community apart, and I want to be a part of the healing process. I have extra time. I am a well-schooled individual on the town's policies and charters. And I'm also not afraid to do research or to ask questions. Do you have any questions that any of you would like to ask of me? Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that the council appoint Rose Heeman Aitman as the interim council member.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. No.
Yeah.
You gotta warn.
You gonna be sworn in right now? Julie's gonna go grab the paper. So for the interim position, this is until the next election, so nomination papers are out now to run again to PCC after June, so you know that as well. We do have 2 openings coming up for the council on this next June election, so there'll be 2 3-year terms and then 1 1-year term for the council, as well as sanitary district school board members. We're really pushing for our school board. Really? Not now? Sorry.
Welcome aboard.
8.4, proposed changes to FOAA policy. First reading.
You missed it.
Pardon?
Budget, like, the budget committee.
Oh, okay, I see where, I mean,
You told us you were gonna skip some.
yeah, I know, I was planning on skipping more than one. Okay, 8.3, committee, budget committee appointment. Times two, Mary Allen and Andrea Nguyen. Are they here? Is Mary Allen here? Andrea Nguyen? No?
They sat with us at the last budget meeting.
Do we have, can we appoint them, or they need to be here? Should be here?
The council has met them. It is in the rules of order that they would stand to be introduced and answer questions before their appointment.
So, they can answer questions.
We have two budget meetings before the next council meeting.
Is that a public meeting where they can be sworn in?
We had it before.
What about the budget meeting? Is that a public meeting on Thursday night?
It is a public meeting. It can be a joint meeting, but there may be the possibility to squeeze that in. Jack, do you know? Could we have a joint meeting with the budget committee and the council for our regular budget meetings? Can we add regular council business of an appointment of a budget committee member to that meeting?
Mayor, these are not elected positions. They are appointed by the council, and we've got their resumes. Could we go by that if there's no, just,
Speaking of, you could go, if you have met them before, they've sat in the last budget
Yeah.
meeting with you, so you've been able to meet.
Yep.
Traditionally, when we went over the rules of order, we wanted to stick to being able to ask them questions, interview people. That is something within the rules of order that is waived for people you already know who are already serving on other committees for reappointments.
And are they serving on other committees?
Nope, but you have met them, and it would be within your discretion. Traditionally, not always required people to come from this point either. But as a practice, we wanted to start sticking to the discretion.
Yes.
Is there anybody from the budget committee here tonight? Lou, have you heard, have you seen the resumes for both of these?
No, I haven't.
You have. Have you met them? Did you meet them when
I
they?
did meet them.
Would you be opposed to the board, the council appointing them tonight if we needed to?
No, not really. It's been practice in the past that people haven't been present and appointed to committees.
and we do need some people on the budget.
Can I speak? My concern is that we have two budget meetings before the next council meeting, and so that's like half of what we need them for.
And we can notify them.
Yep. We'll get back in touch with them and we always have one of you on the weekend.
Can I make a motion? I make a motion that we accept both these appointments for the budget committee. Andrea Nguyen and Mary Allen.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Now can I go to 8.4? Proposed changes to the FOAA policy, first reading.
So this is coming out of, again, the workshop with Don Garish, and what we were kind of looking to do and establish, started with the conversations around the planning board. What I did is I went back to the original 2012 protocols to request public records, instead of creating something new. I wanted to update and essentially expound on something that we already had on the books. So most of this is already been policy on how to request records. So what I did is added the underlined section on guidelines concerning access to public procedures. It spelled out essentially conventions that we've been kind of discussing on that would broadly apply to all town committees, any organization that's seated by a motion of the council to have open public access meetings on town property that are noticed so that people can come if they want. And we would have a little bit more opportunity to help get all of those minutes recompiled, relisted on the website. We've been working and chasing some to keep up with some of the minutes of their operation to get them in front of council. This will give us a little bit more ability to go after those records, those minutes, and get them put out as we do the council agendas and meetings.
Zach, I have a question for you. Have we added something in here in case it's a situation where we've had recently where you recused yourself from the process? Do we have someone who's second in line? Because we changed it in here to town manager as
For
the...
the FOAA.
Yeah.
It's not been formalized. I think when I've recused myself from processing FOAAs in this scenario,
So it will be your position to pass it along then?
correct. Or
Okay.
they have the ability, they step up and they work with Jack as well to be able to process. it.
Okay.
So this is just a first reading. We'll do the same thing. We will list it, post it on the website, and we'll hold a public hearing at our next regular council meeting.
8.5, transfer station, short and long-range phone. This is discussion.
Do you want to use the microphone at the podium? And they have your email with ideas. So this is kind of a... I'll speak for it. It's your show.
All right. You don't want me, do you want me to go through all of this, or did you already read it?
No, well,
We've read it.
I don't know if the public doesn't know.
So you want me to read it to the public?
Well, you could...
Highlight
read
it.
part of it.
Highlight it.
Yeah, highlight it.
Okay. So basically what I put together was a design change for the transfer station because we have some antiquated processes up there. We're not as efficient. And we also have an old attenuated landfill, which basically means it's an unlined landfill. And it would probably be in, the state would love it, I'm sure, if we closed that. So one of my items here was to close the landfill. There's an advantage to closing the landfill right now because the state will reimburse 90% of costs, remediation costs. And it would be good for us to be able to close it and get that 90% reimbursement rather than close it 10 years down the line and pay 100% of the costs. That's something to think about, and once it's closed, then we could have the potential of installing a solar farm up there on top, so it generates revenue for the town. So it does two things. The other thing that, so that kind of leads into if the landfill were closed, a lot of people have asked, well, a lot of people, us in our discussion, what would we do with the CDD that we currently put in the landfill?
So basically, we only put wood up there. We stopped taking shingles and sheetrock in that landfill because it was negatively impacting the groundwater. So now we only take wood, so we would just have to circumvent that into a container and receive the wood in the container. It would open it up to possibly, if we wanted to, take shingles and sheetrock again, because we'd be taking it into a container that we would transport off-site. So there's that potential. And in my notes here, we had hoped that that container that we received that material in would be a recessed container. So we would drop from the top, basically. And we do have a container that could do that. It just would need a little bit of refurbishing so that we could set that up. And the other thing that would really help with the efficiencies up there is to, this would be a purchase of a compactor. We do have containers that could line up with a compactor, but the compactor would be for cardboard, and then it would stop us from having to break down all the cardboard boxes and make the puzzle that you see if you use the transfer station. You see how we pack everything into that container like a puzzle and get a whole whopping ton out of it. So it would make for more efficient collection of the cardboard and transportation as well, because we'd be putting more weight into it, obviously, before we had to transport it. Let's see. And then the other thing that could be somewhat contentious, I'm sure even in this room, would be to institute a pay-as-you-throw system where, like other municipalities have, where you purchase bags to use the facility. It would also generate revenue for the municipality, and also make it a more equitable system at the transfer station. It also encourages recycling, but a lot of people are, when they see the pay-as-you-throw system, kind of get a little haired up. So
We've been, what we've had going for us right along, I think, is the fact that we are a source sort. Everything is sorted here as opposed to neighboring communities that are doing single sort, where they're having a hard time getting rid of their recyclables that they collect because they're either contaminated, they're not sorted well. Our staff does an amazing job keeping on people and, again, diverting really as much as we can out of the waste, because we pay. You'll see later that we pay to ship to MWAC to throw stuff away, so the more that we can sort right there at the transfer station, we're either able to sell it for a little bit of revenue to offset operational costs, or we're at least not paying for it nearly as much as we would be if we're shipping it to MWAC to burn it.
absolutely.
That opportunity has been allowing us to kind of be ahead of the game, where other communities are now starting to talk about getting rid of single sort. So the upside as well is, on the other scenario, if the state 90% reimbursement for closing the landfill, initial kind of ballpark ideas, we're looking at $500,000-ish.
About $500,000.
Landfill when it comes to it.
And that price tag only goes up the longer we wait. So,
Do you know how long the 90% may be around?
so the extension has been, it's been extended to 2025 or until the money runs out.
And we did a preliminary request, so we have to pull a plan together to essentially have it engineered, surveyed, and develop the plan to close it. And the plan itself was $60,000.
So I thought the plan was about 30,000, but obviously that would have to be, RFP'd out. But I think that was around 30,000, and the rest of it was in materials and labor for the actual closure.
And this is where it was a larger policy direction question before we started, because we've got time and the ability to plan on whether or not, if the council and the town would like to go in that route, now that we do have the 90% state portion of closing it, is probably the best incentive I think we may get from the state. If we do go in that direction, we could start CIPing it for the engineering cost and our share of what we have to do to save it. And still, we have a few years up till 2025 to really get into the program. But I didn't want to take a direction or a stab on that big of a change without running it by
The $30,000 to $60,000, that's our cost. That's not the 90% they're gonna take off, is that right?
Right, I don't know how, right. That would probably be ours, the design.
If we did the pay-as-you-go, I come up there with 2 bags, what do other towns do? Would it be $1 a bag, 50 cents a bag?
And that would depend on the municipality. So you have control, we would have control over that pricing. And I guess it kind of depends on what we want for revenue back, to offset operational costs.
And if I brought a washing machine up, that would be a special cost also?
Well, the washing machine generates revenue for us because it's a metal item. But if you brought up a couch, then yes, we already have an
Yes.
established fee schedule. That probably could use some updating, but we do already have an established fee schedule for bulky items like that.
Thank you.
So, I was just speaking, so really the big change would be with the pay-as-you-go system, the bags you'd be selling for a fee to offset operations. Currently, the revenue that we do get outside of from what we sell and what we're able to ship out, we've been budgeting about $5,000 a year just in transfer station stickers. And we've been pretty close to that as of, right now what we have is a direct offset of operations up there. Do you have any idea what pay-as-you-go may?
Yeah, so I did like this guesstimate of, based on our historical tonnage and going with about 15 pounds per bag, which is, just really gross. But, and it came up with a $30,000 figure for revenue. So, but I mean, those are really crude figures though, What's that?
Does that mean we don't have to sort things anymore?
Wait.
Well, that would be up to you, I guess, wouldn't it?
Listen. She's talking to us. When she's done, if you have a question, you talk to us. Thank you. You have anything more to say?
No, not
Well
unless
done.
you have questions.
What do you want, Paula?
How much a bag do you think is price per bag?
I think I did about 26 cents a bag.
The charge for a
No, I did $1 a bag.
$1?
Mhm.
Now, if we buy a bag, does that mean we just throw our trash in a bag and it doesn't have to get sorted?
Well, you do have an ordinance that, I believe, that there is a town ordinance making recycling mandatory. There aren't any consequences to that.
Why the bag? I mean, we have to get the bag now that you can see basically what's in there. It has to be a white, opaque bag. We can't just carry 5 bags. So why the bag charge? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the bags offset, the price of the bags help offset operational costs because they're a revenue source. They're also,
We pay now for the sand and the dump at the same time, and that prevents us to use the dump. So is that fee going to be eliminated?
right, so your sticker use charge, you wouldn't be paying you wouldn't have to buy a $10 a year sticker. It makes it a more equitable system too, because you just said you bring up 1 or 2 bags a week, and then you have, somebody else who's bringing up 20 bags a week, and they pay the same price. Yeah, you bring one bag.
I sorted stuff in one bag.
Yeah, so you're paying for someone else to bring up 20 bags. So it just makes it a more equitable system, but.
And it would also help that people, in order to save money on the bags, would be doing more sorting. We have a lot of people now that just ignore the rules completely. Well, you can't do that.
Okay, listen, no more talking back and forth, please. You want to talk to us. Yes. Yes.
So the question is, or the council itself, or Zach, is how much this is going to be like? What's
That's
question, what's the cost of this whole project, the CIP, and what's going on? And how is that going to reflect upon the cost of what money is going away? So there's some offset costs and some increased costs. And then the third is, it's, you know, you can bail out cardboard. You said they'll put it in the crusher container. If you bail
Compact it.
You can load it on the semi and send it away directly to force it. And you can do the same with your metal.
Well, we could do it with all commodities if you wanted to invest in a baler.
Yeah, even the plastics,
Right.
you know, ones and twos, the good stuff, it's actually very safe.
It is.
So, you know, I understand this is the first discussion of this, but those numbers need to be looked at so that we can understand this community.
Yep, yep.
Catherine has started looking at potential of working with neighboring communities as well to use their balers, the cost effectiveness of shipping to another neighboring community than to just bail it for us. We haven't seen yet. So start with closing date. I would have to pull that together. Right now, I think we're budgeting maybe 10 grand every 2 years for the surveying and the fill work that we do. We only do it every few years that we recover what's there. The offset isn't going to be as much because the only thing going in there currently is brush and debris, correct?
No brush, just wood.
Wood, just lumber.
Mhm.
So everything else we're still shipping off-site anyway in various forms, selling metal. So, correct, the one offset that we do have to try and wrap our head around is what is it going to cost for us to redivert just the lumber material that's been going in the landfill to another another end user.
And what is the end date of our landfill?
That I will. They've been pushing every year I've been here to give them a closure date.
Right.
And they've been pretty insistent on trying to get them all closed. More so now, I think with the solar farms that have been going on landfills and redirecting to some of our other landfills in town, but trying to find a end to that cycle, I think, before that program finishes. But I will follow up with that day.
Yes, Lou? Please stand up. Thank you.
You mentioned something about solar farms, lots of property, there's offsetting land around the landfill that would be used for that. Just tree, cut a tree down. So, but that window's closing very fast. Permits are plastic.
And for this round, because we still have an active landfill, it's really not on anybody's radar. We have one other one that isn't nearly as prime real estate for it. The other scenario, to go back to your question that I forgot about, in order to get the engineering cost, that's what we'd be potentially looking to CIP for, to find out what the final total cost is going to be for closing it. Scary as it is, that's what we're looking at, having to potentially put up 30 grand for the engineering company to draw up the designs and plans and give us a price for closure. So we have to pay to figure out really what that number's going to be. And that's kind of for that scenario, that would be our first step, is whether or not when we sit down and look at the transfer station budget later this week, next week, do we start looking at CIP for that long range planning?
Thank you very much.
I have a couple of comments on that. Still, Sean Berry, 88 Elm Street. Everywhere that I've lived that has had the paper bag has also had curbside pickup. It may be different in some places, but in those places, you're getting what you pay for. You were directly saving yourself the hassle of going to the dump by just buying a bag, drop it out there, and that's all you have to worry got 15 or 20 of them on your step. That's something else. So there's that. I don't, as you know, as a dump consumer, I don't feel that I'm really getting anything much out of this. And I think you know, even in those towns where you get curbside pickup, so you actually get a service out of it, people hate them. I mean, they'll pay for the bags, but they hate it. It's a source of grumbling, and I think that would be worse here, and we would lose people. I don't know how many people now have hired their own dumpster, rent their own dumpster instead of going to the dump, or hire, you know, trashy ladies or whatever to you know, come and pick up their trash and deal with it for them. But I think this would tend to scare people away from using the transfer station, because even if it does end up being cheaper to use the transfer station, buying the bags, it might be $20 a month. You'd be paying and have the added hassle of still needing to go to the dump. I'm leery of the proposal. I think I don't know. I think we need to consider all kinds of sides of this before. Obviously, this is an early point in the decision-making process, but I want to put that out there now.
Just a moment, Paul, put it in.
Paul is on Bay 17 Road. I'm at the end of the dead end road, and when you all put in the sticker orders, my dead end front starts seeing a lot of people's trash. My concern is if you do this per bag thing, I'll be back being the revenue bag. We still legally deal with tires and other things that get left in the turnaround. This bag thing would make it even worse for us.
Yeah, on that bag thing, I don't think it would be a good idea, because if you get sat behind that bag, I agree with him. I think it would give you the incentive to hire somebody just to come pick it up. Right now, you have a sorting arrangement up here where you do gain revenue for it, and you could lose that revenue completely.
Yes.
Mark Stockton, 735. Is there a bid in looking at the cost of buying a trash compactor from cardboard? How long that's going to be to get people to stick it in the road? And I think that's something planned to happen for the first 10, 15 years to take the trash compactor to crushing cardboard.
Do you have an answer for that?
Not offhand yet. And it would be a multiple-use compactor. You could use it for plastics and cardboard. Right. We can pull it together for our budget committee presentation as well. And this is really kind of where the first steps for some of these plans are. We have a standing CIP for the transfer, and we're trying to come up with a kind of a realignment and a refocus through this process. And again, trying to utilize the CIP for it, but start easing into some of these process changes.
Lou, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's a compactor and then there's a baler. And there's two different things. One is a huge compartment that you actually compact the trash into, like this president of the transfer station now. The other one is a baler, which probably makes a baler that's probably 30 inches wide by 4 feet. In length, stands about 5 foot tall. And you can use it for multiple, plastic, metal, cardboard. And those failed in intensive compliance. Used $100,000.
Is everyone,
Norma Crabtree, 23 Highland Avenue. This is a question not to do with anything that has just been discussed, but it is in regards to having the podium, the microphone here. You start out the meeting with people coming up, addressing issues at the podium, and then it gets completely out of control and they're standing up anywhere in the room talking.
Which brings to mind, I see you all have microphones in front of you, but you're not using them.
They're on.
What's the point?
They're on.
But they're not in front of you, so they're not really working. No, thank you.
You can bump the volume. We can.
Oh, come on.
Well, you can hear you without one. I can hear Nick before the microphone.
Sorry, Keith.
And Zach especially is very loud.
Okay, we're moving on. 8.6, MWAC renewal, contract renewal.
So this one we do have two process. Sorry. So what we currently have built in the budget is the 5-year contract term. So this is the contract we have with MWAC for what we pay per ton to ship out just our trash and what's going to municipal waste. We have two options. A 3-year contract is $39,000 per ton. The annual adjustments. Or we can get into a 5-year contract at $77 per ton with those same annual adjustments. Do you remember offhand what your tonnage was last month? 30 ton a month. Okay. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we've been paying out, per the contract every year. And they are looking for us to renew our contract.
Is it going up? Of course it's going up.
Silly question.
I would like to make a motion here. Is it too early?
I'm just looking up last year's budget number for tonnage. So the current fiscal year we're in, we were paying $74.48 per ton. So it's going up almost $3 per ton for the 5-year contract, more for the 3-year contract.
So it's going up $3 a ton.
I would like to go with the 5-year contract, and I just have I think waste management is really going to take off in the next few years, and I think that we want to get into something locked for 5 years instead of 3. But if anyone's got a better argument, I'm all for it. That's my motion.
I second your motion.
Any discussion?
I'm guilty. I haven't been up to the dump, so I'm not sure what is it that is going,
To MWAC for trash,
What we're taking,
not the cardboard.
So anything that is not redirected, so it is essentially the leftovers, and we've been trying to create opportunities and kind of competitions to see how much we can limit, because this is the most expensive for us to get rid of. But it's anything that's not sorted recycling.
Okay, so you get bottles, cans, plastic, cardboard.
Plastics, cardboards, those are all redirected out, and that's what our staff does really well.
Okay, so
is-
you just kind of have household garbage.
we make money off the metal, right? And plastic too? No. But cardboard? Okay. Just the metal.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Unanimous. Approved. All right, now, 9.1, the proposed change to council rules of order.
Make a motion to approve the proposed changes to the council rules of order.
I second that.
Any discussion? those in favor? Unanimous.
That makes sense.
Yep, so, excuse me, so from now on, people get 3 minutes? That's it.
9.2, the changes to snow emergency policy.
I make a motion to approve the proposed changes to the snow emergency policy.
I second it.
Any discussion?
What are the snow?
Yes, I'll let Zach.
So what we had, this is really, it's a small portion of our personnel policy. The standing policy right now is that if the office is closed for a snow emergency and the manager decides to close the office and not have staff come in, those staff are required to use their vacation time to cover the hours that they would have worked. So what we've done is we've created a policy where only in the situation where there's an emergency office closure, the staff that were scheduled to work that day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Just print, sign it.
So we had a motion and a second for that one?
Yep.
I offered mine, she didn't get it. She hasn't.
All those in favor to the change, unanimous.
Thank you.
Keith, would you like to say something about, we're gonna have that meeting tomorrow with the Sun people?
Solar company?
No, that's, next month.
Oh, that's not tomorrow night?
They're still gonna have their meeting,
Oh, they are.
because they couldn't make it tonight, but they wanna come before the council in April as well.
I won't be here tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I have something else
Yeah, it's their meeting.
I don't know, maybe
It's their meeting.
7 o'clock?
They're gonna
It's
come.
their meeting, they don't be back.
I make a motion to adjourn?
I second that motion.
We had executive session.
Oh, jeez, I'm so sorry.
Back side of favor.
Yes.
They're not gonna jump on the same.
So,
I make a motion that we enter into executive session, Title 1 MRS, Section 405-6D, and Title 1 MRS, Sections 405-6E.
I second that motion.
I hope everybody could hear me.
Of course they can hear Unanimous.
okay.
I make a motion that we come out of Title 1 MRS, Section 405-6D.
I second that motion.
All in favor? Unanimous. And now, you're gonna go into the other one.
Okay, ready?
Julie has to come report it.
I made a motion to come out of executive session, Title 1 MRS, Section 405-6-D.
I second the motion. We all were in favor.
And it was unanimous.
You can say that.
Yes, because I voted.
Yeah.
You can't have the chair not vote and have it unanimous. Not,
I make a motion
not to my way.
that we go into executive session, Title 1 MRS, Section 405-6.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
I make a motion to come out of executive session, Title 1 MRS, Section 405-6E.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's your first one.
Any discussion?
Jack, it's always good to see you.
All in favor?
We
Unanimous.
sign the Rudd book.